Yes, very good evening again, and welcome back in this new episode of Sapien Talks. And we are now going to do the second video of how to achieve eloquence in our deliverance in the deliverance of a speech. Right. And in the last video, we discussed many points like we discussed the role of vocabulary. We also discussed the role of clarity of thoughts. We also discussed, what eloquency is and what it can mean to people. So we discussed all these things, and in this video, we'll be talking about more such points which are really important for a person, especially a speaker who's willing to achieve eloquence in his or her speech. Right. So today, I want you to uh, shed some light on the points which we discussed in the previous video. Just recap those points, and then we'll be moving forward with the today's episode. Can you summarize the points? I'm telling you the sub points which we discussed. First, was a clarity of thoughts, how important it is to have a clarity of thought. The second one was the selection of vocabulary, the role of vocabulary, what role it plays in a person for a person in order to achieve this eloquence. At the same time, in order to create some kind of positive effect on the people. Um, so this is something which you are gonna recap. Over
Sure.
to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good evening, first of all. And without wasting any single second, let's get back to the business. So, previously, we discussed a lot of things, by the way, because we covered up many questions and we responded and we tried to respond it to the bestest ability of us, right? Uh, yes, we talked about, clarity of thoughts, in which we talked about how we could practice this clarity of thought and how significant it is, especially someone who wants to master the art of communication skills, because clarity of thought is what is the soul of your communications. And if it is not clear to you, if you're not well adapted with your own particular project that you are going to deliver before the audience, it's going to be very hard time for everyone who actually wants to have you know some good results out of it. So this was about the, you can say, your particular point that we raised about, right?
Yes.
Second, you talked about vocabulary.
Yes.
I mean, vocabulary. I mean, vocabulary is just a genuine, a question that is usually asked as to what amount of, a particular kind of importance or deal of importance that one should give and attribute to this particularly only vocab sections, especially one who is trying to build up their communication skills. I told in my previous video that a vocabulary is just like your 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 weapon, right? And it helps you every single moment, especially when you go off trade or communication skills. It actually helps you to continue with your communication skills. See, we all people are somewhere not perfect, and no one can be completely perfect, right?
Yes.
So in this way we have to have some sort of ancillary tools with us, always in a ready-made positions that could be used anytime when we really want to use it. Vocab really helps us. So vocab and its proper usages in a particular conversations with the people, you know carry out with a degree of flow, right? So it never gives you a feeling that you have been disunioned or disconnected with the audience. So, and many people really, I mean, those who have just enrolled in this communication classes, they, with not having a lot of vocab, as a power in them, they really don't, can't speak for a longer period because they have to have something, because we have to create some sound if you really want to speak, right? And to create that sound we have to we have to have a power of vocab. So vocabulary
Yes.
really works a significant role in this. Yes, so that's what all we talked in the last video. Over to you.
Yes, and for the detailed discussion of the points which we did in the last video, people can tune into that video we made in the last episode. And yes, what we're gonna do today is tell me what's the role of connecting or establishing a connect with the audience, because it's important that we establish a connect with the audience, because us audience always wants, everybody wants to means everybody wants you to speak what they
Right.
want to hear from you, right? Because you cannot simply be talking about what you think to talk about. They want the questions to be answered, right? So it's important for a speaker to establish a connect with the audience, and but at the same time he doesn't want to lose the integrity of the message which he's willing to convey through the speech, right? So can you suggest me any techniques? Are there any techniques available which can help you gain the effectiveness, or you can say maintain the efficacy of your speech, and while maintaining the connect with the audience? Over to you.
Okay, so perhaps you are trying to suggest that how one could have a emotional connect with the audience, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay, so right. I mean, this is something which could be understood and could be well learned with personal experiences. And we both have done a lot in this particular field, so we can share some experiences, and it these experience really help out a lot. I mean, emotional connect with the audience is something very significant, very substantial. Because as I told you previously, a good communicator understands his responsibility towards the audience. So there are two kinds of audiences. One that actually pays some money to be a part of that particular, conclave or particular kind of conference where you're holding this particular seminar or speech, right? And thereafter, your responsibility becomes even more. You need to treat yourself as an accountable person, and therefore, this is up to you how you can hold or establish a good union or connect with the audience. So, therefore, a good speaker is not one who is well adept and skilled in just uttering some words in a more fanciful way or using some florid style of speaking, making people enthralled by their communication skills. It is just one among many, traits of a good speakers, but not everything. A good communicator, a speaker is also the one who is very much open with his eyes and attentive with his mind.
yes,
So whenever he uses the entire stage or the platform, using this, he addresses the large audience in a very short span of time. He is supposed to grasp the very expectations of the people out there waiting for you to listen to something, right? So this is something a good speaker tries to understand right in the initial phase of his speaking before he actually takes off his part, especially with the project that he's prepared with, right? Now, many people asked me this very pertinent question as to how it is possible for a speaker or that speaker has not any or kind of experience previously, or you can say didn't have that particular kind of connect with the audience, because all those people sitting there in the audience sections are almost new faces. Then how it becomes and could be easy for a speaker to know about it? I heard someone saying in his interview, I forgot the name of that speaker. He says that when you look, especially around, especially in the audience gallery, if you can compute about the people who are sitting there in front of you on the basis of their age, then you, to a certain extent, can try to at least hold a very partial opinion about those actually what they expect from you. Now, this is something very easy because wherever these communications are held, like these seminars or these motivational speakings, everyone knows these are like very much advertised prior to it happens or prior to its occurrence, right? So
yes,
obviously the subject is always known to people. So many people are not going to struggle with this, the very idea as to what is going to happen
yes,
throughout the speaking session or during the speaking sessions, right? So I think on that particular point we are not going to be very bothered and concerned about it. But yes, there should be a concern left in the mind of the speaker as to how it could be more effective, and this could be well done and learned only when we understand the expectations that actually people have from us. And therefore, you need to just get the nerve of the people right there sitting. So if you find as a speaker that there is a large audience sections coming below the age group of 20, 25, let's say, for an example, you can be really prepared accordingly, because you have, but two things are always there. One, that you have to present yourself with high spirit. So, I mean, these are the major and essential ingredients. Everyone should know about it. First is that to be with high spirit. Second, be always energetic and enthusiastic, and as well as optimistic.
Yes.
So these are the basic, you can say, components, or in fact, it is also considered a fuel, a kind of fuel that actually gives some mileage to a speaker and gives a powerful impetus. So that's how, when we connect, and when we connect to the audience, we literally try to know that exactly what these audience want from us, and then accordingly we move forward with the communication skills. So emotional connect is very important, and it's not that much rocket science, it's not a Hercules task. It is just like as you go ahead, and moreover, as we talk about the non-verbal kinds of communication skills, we will also try to know how these non-verbal aspects of the audience can also help the speaker to know, as they are basically or actually taking some interest in the speaking of the speaker or not. So these few points which are highly settled, but a speaker having a good command over his communication skill literally can find ways out to as to how they could hold a communication skill, and how to they could hold a good union with the audience as an emotional connect and as emotional bonding. Over to you.
Yes, very nicely said. Because once you spend some time with the people, you get to know what they're looking for, right, and what they want from you. And if you're a good speaker, you have this ability. Because we, as a speaker, have to develop this ability to know what the audience wants from us, right? So a person who is willing to become a good speaker should really be working on this skill, and this skill can also be cultivated, right? It's not
Right.
that tough once you start knowing the people. And people can be known just by having a conversation with them, just by looking at their faces, just by looking at their body language, right?
Right.
Because what I've heard, what I've read is that sometimes what we don't speak, our body speaks.
Right.
Sometimes what we don't speak, our emotions speak. So this is really very important for a speaker to keep in mind. My next question is, you just talked about it in, I mean, last, अभी 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 आपने बोला था that you want this particular kind of thing, non-verbal, communication, right?
Yeah.
And that is really important because you don't say everything through your tongue. Sometimes you also use your gestures, sometimes you use your hand movements because that's enough to convey the message, right? And that's what you are going to answer, right? So tell me, what's the role of non-verbal communication, and how effective can it be while you are conveying your message to the people? And is there any situation where you find that it is really become very much important for you to use? Generally, when we speak, we most of the people use their hand movements. They use gestures to showcase their emotions, or to convey their emotions, you can say,
Right.
right? Because when a person speaks without having any gestures, without hand movements, so they fail to produce the kind of effect they want to produce, especially in people. uh, it seems that they're just standing there, and saying, just going on speaking, but they have lost that connect which can be established through these non-verbal communications, right? So this is what you're going to answer, that how what's the role of non-verbal verbal communication, and how effective it can be while you are trying to convey a message. Over to you.
Right. I mean, this is such a nice question, by the way, because literally I don't find these days these new learners who have just got enrolled in this communication skills program, Whether they have got this very idea as to this non-verbal communication skill is something could be there for learning on that, because many speakers, I don't say good speakers, could even neglect or avoid the importance of it, but I say there are few speakers who don't give a proper, a pertinent lecture, especially on the part of this non-verbal, as what role it plays in the entire communication skills. See, we know that we have only two things when we talk about communication skill. One is verbal and the second is non-verbal. I mean, when we speak something through creating sound, that becomes a verbal communications. And it's sometimes very easy for people to understand it as long as you go with the flow. Moreover, you use some standard vocab and standard sentence constructions, right? But it is also possible that in cases where people are really not understand and they don't have their mind, processing at a very high speed, right? And therefore they need their speakers to be coming out with some bodily movements, which you call gestures and postures, which actually creates a redounding effect on the entire communication skills. I mean, if you ask someone like me, how one could create a very, unforgettable impression on the mind of the people throughout communication skill or using communication skill, then I would love to say to them that it is not just your word that speaks your personality, it is also your entire body, which goes consistently with your words. So if you use both of them concurrently, then there is a fair possibility that you are going to drive the home lesson. And this is what is very important for new learners to understand it, because non-verbal communication is very important. Now, I would like to tell few of the non-verbal communications, and it's particular kind of technical term that a communicator uses throughout the communication skill. We all know about a kind of paralinguistic terminology or a concept which is highly evolved and which is very much advanced, as it is consistently used by good communicators throughout their communication skills. For example, you might have noticed my voice, my pitch is sometimes going up and down, and this is a part of paralinguistic. So when you
This
want your
this
mess,
this is
yeah,
also called, I think, voice modulation. While
yes,
you
voice
talk to people,
modulations, you're right.
yes.
Voice
Mm.
modulations. This actually helps you to emphasize on a particular aspect of your communication or a particular content which you are going to deliver, right? This is really important. People don't find it important. I don't know why, but it actually makes people know as to what is important for you. And therefore, the person should take it with a degree of seriousness so that it could be effective and impactful at the same time. So when you raise your voice up a bit, it just like indicates, or it has its implicit meaning that you have something important, you have something very substantial and significant that I as a speaker don't want my listeners to be missing it out, right? So therefore I have to raise my voice up, but that voice must be raised just in order to connect with the audience, to let them know how important this particular content is. So therefore we are just like preparing them to be bit focused on the point where we are, right? So this paralinguistic plays a very key role as a non-verbal communication aspect throughout the communication skill, right? Your gesture and postures, these are very common terms and common components of non-verbal communication skills, right? You people come out with different gestures and postures. It actually reflects how you are going to be treated and how people taking you. Non-verbal communications important not just for a speaker but as well as for the audience too.
Yes.
Me as a speaker, whenever hits any flow, and addresses a large audience, I really try to see much about the interest as these all people taking in my speaking, right? And how could I know about it? Through the non-verbal expressions. So, for example, if someone's slouching in their seat and listening to me, this will give me a quick indication that the person is not finding me much interesting, and therefore he's not giving me much interest, and my overall presentation is perhaps unimaginative for him, perhaps very vapid and lackluster, right?
Yes.
So then after looking at him, I will try to do something else, to do some improvisations in my communication skills, or try to use some examples so that I could attract the attention of the person who's about to sleep, right, in the audience section, right?
You can also go to him and just snap a finger. Then you say, "Oh, yes, you can say something in a very you can say effectively, and very loudly,
Absolutely.
and sometimes you are just trying to take his attention towards you. You're trying to draw his attention towards you so that he can come out from that state of lethargy and all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This also happens, but that becomes a very difficult situation for a speaker. I mean, you have to be in a position where you have to be continuous with different improvisations within you
Yes.
according to the required circumstances, according to the required conditions and the situations, right? I mean, for example, there is a term called proxemics. This is also one part of non-verbal communication skills. I mean, when you go to some foreign countries and talk to some native speaking people, these people are highly xenophobia, right? Because they
Mm.
don't find other people, foreign people like us, to be very familiar with them. So therefore, they actually try to maintain some difference, especially when
Yes.
they communicate with the people, right? So they
Yes.
always maintain a great deal of difference between the people when they communicate. They are not coming out very closely. They are not meeting up with that degree of proximity with you. I mean, we Indians are very much warm and very much, close with each other. Whomsoever we meet, we like treat them as a family, right? But
Yes.
these people are highly, unpredictable in their attitude. They are very cranky, if I can say in simple term. They get frustrated because they are highly restive. Maybe just because of they have their different climate. Maybe the climate has some impact on them. Maybe they are not very much adapted towards, this entire, geological, climatic situations that prevails in India. So maybe it causes them frustration, whatever it is. But they try to maintain some difference. So this proxemics is another form of non-verbal communication skills. Is just a component of it, which actually makes us feel and know that the person is trying to just maintain some difference, and therefore you have to prepare accordingly. You are not going to be familiar with that person, you are not going to communicate with that person as you usually do with your friends or someone. So you have to build up some relationship with that person first of all, right? And once you build up a good relationship with that person, you gain some familiarity after talking for 5, 10, or 15 minutes. Then you can take a second step. So you can advance your communication with that particular person as a form of a particular conversation, right? So that's how this conversation, that's how this kind of nonverbal you know uh, impacts on your overall communication skills. And there are several others, and this is just a part of communication skills. One must go through this, and one must try it, by the way. And last but not the least, everyone would accept the fact that we are not always up to with that exact vocab or sentence construction which is really required and pertinent to elaborate upon a particular situation. So in that particular scenario, we are not supposed to be taking some zerk or a kind of break in our communication skills. It actually gives a negative impact on our communication skills, right? Therefore, we have to use this non-verbal kind of tools throughout the communication skills so that it could give them a reflection that the communication is going on continuously and it is making a complete sense. Because at the end of the day, as I told you, and I will keep telling it, that if there is something to be achieved in the overall conversation that is held between the two person, is that the overall gist or the overall convincing meaning that should be completely imparted with other person so that you could have a good positive feedback. Over to you.
Yes, what I have discovered, what I have learned throughout my journey as a speaker is that you cannot actually deliver a speech without using these non-verbal, communication. Because even though you are teaching somebody, even though you are, conveying a message, even though you are addressing somebody, you cannot do without it. Be it, I mean, you may be a speaker, you may be a, you can say, a teacher, you may be anybody. Even in a simple conversations, we use gestures, right? We use
Right.
hand movements. No, as we are sitting over here, we are actually using the non-verbal communication. Although it's not possible for us to just use this, these gestures like
Right.
this, but yes, we are using, because this emphasizes your overall message to the people, right? My next question for you is to, can you tell me the kind of difficulties, the kind of challenges a speaker faces, right? Because there are so many challenges, and only a very experienced speaker can deal with those challenges. Sometimes, knowing the audience is also a challenge for a speaker, right? Sometimes cultural differences can also be there, right? So a speaker has to know all these things, and this can sometimes become a challenge for speaker. Ultimately, you are facing an audience which are, you can say, the people in the audience are coming from different backgrounds, and you should be keeping that into account, because everybody has different, you can say, ideologies. Everybody has different kind of, mindsets. Everybody has different kinds of, you can say, labels, right? So the challenge, especially for a speaker, no, this is a kind of challenge for a speaker. So how can a speaker deal with these kind of challenges?
I mean, since whatever you have just spoken right now, I could only assume that you are talking about those challenges on the part of a speaker, right?
Yes, because this is, what he faces. For example, let's take an example of a teacher, who is teaching school, class of different students, and the students are, they are of different levels. Some are good, some are average, and some are below average, right?
Okay.
But everybody is, every student is attending the same class, and the same teacher is dealing with, all those students, and the goal of a teacher is to inculcate the message, or you can say, to hammer the idea into their minds, right? No matter what the level is. So the speaker is supposed to tailor his message in such a fashion that everybody can understand that, everybody can digest that, no matter what the level is.
Yep.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So actually, I want to say a few things on it. Since you talked about and you gave this very relevant example of teacher, as teacher faces a lot of problem, especially when he faces students of diversified into mental capacities and ability, right? Because
Yes.
they come with their different backgrounds, right? And they have their different ability. So it becomes a very difficult task, a challenges task for a teacher to cope with them with equal state of mind. So it is very usual that teacher is likely to lose his temper, especially on certain occasions, as it usually happens. But here the communication or the speaker who communicates or who himself considers a good communicator first is something who is never going to lose his temper first. And there are challenges. I don't say that there are not any challenges. The challenges will continue to be a part of your learning skill. We know this very well, and it's a universal fact. Even when a person who is just a fresh blood, or you can say just a green egg, a novice person, right, who hasn't done anything, especially in the field of communication, and now just got awakened with this idea that he wants to do something in the communication field. As soon as he gets himself enrolled with this communication class, on the very second day, he will start having some challenges. And these challenges continue to persist with him throughout his entire life. So even when we are communicating together right now, we don't say that we are not facing some challenges. Yes, we're still facing some challenges, but our challenges are different from the challenges being faced by some newcomers, right? This is
Yes.
just one difference, but the challenges will always be there. So, first, a speaker, as a speaker, must introduce this fact to the entire audience to whom he addresses is that challenge and challenges are the cardinals and are the universal associated factors of communication skills, or you can say these will continue to be a part of communication skills, because challenges will always be with a communicator. Challenges arise sometimes on account of different situations, different circumstances, unexpectedly arose. It might be possible. Sometimes it happens that something goes against your will and against your expectations. Sometimes it happens with me also, that when I go with a certain topic as a subject of presentation, and when I don't find that level of encomium as a praise towards me, I feel myself a bit depressed. But thereafter I soon think that it's a part of your job, it's a part of your profession. The first thing which I conclude this very as a solution one should have while facing these challenges, to consider these challenges as a permanent part of your process of learning, whatsoever you do. So when you gain this familiarity with this word challenge, you actually get an idea as to there is something which you don't avoid and which you're not supposed to avoid. The problem arises when you try to avoid these challenges just because of you don't like it. You actually just blocking up a road for yourself. We all know that every challenge is just like a mission. You and me know this well, that challenges are like a mission and that has to be conquered, because one challenge is conquered leads you to face another challenge, right? So this is a chain like sequence, but it's not a vicious cycle. It's a cycle that gives you continuous learning. A speaker, when faces certain challenges, I mean, the only response, I mean, to this from my side is that to continue and to overcome those challenges, because after you get enrolled and after you get be very much familiar and habitual with this ongoing situation, you really don't find and need much help from the external segments or external kinds of sources. You yourself are able to find the solution of it, and you overcome this very soon. And that's how you become a good speaker over the period of time as the time passages, right? So that's how it is done according to me. Over to you.
Yes, uh, yes, we do have some problems, while communicating with people. This is very common, and this is how we learn. This is how we evolve, right? Um, as we also know that when we started, even though when you can say you might have seen that the way we started the video, right? And as we progressed, during this video. Uh, the things fell into place, right? Initially
Correct.
we have some difficulties, but as we start progressing, we gain some kind of experience, and that's what teaches us to learn more and more, right? And
Correct.
this is how a person becomes good speaker. But there is no perfection, I would say.
Absolutely.
There are always something to learn, right? Something to better yourself, and yeah, this is what a person should always be working on. My next question is, can you share some experience, some personal experience, where you thought that yes, you achieved eloquence in your speech, and can you also suggest me when this happened? So, what factors do you think were responsible? What factors contributed to uh, help you gain eloquency in your speech?
Okay. I mean, of my personal experience, I have a few things to share with you on this very part. When we advance our learning process, and as the time passes, we find ourselves in a more you know confident situations, in a more strong situation, especially when we compare our current positions to the positions of yesteryear, right? And that's how we appraise ourselves. In fact, it's a ground on which we give, personal appreciations or self appreciations, because self appreciation is really important. Now, when it comes to identify as to whether I now acquired this very, point of eloquence, say a good player, or a good, or a versatile, or a skilled person who has got some forte in his own particular department. For instance, if you go and ask Virat Kohli or Sachin Tendulkar whether they are completely adapted and skilled in their profession and their business, especially this playing cricket, both of them will end up saying you no. They will still say there is a lot of thing to earn and learn in the very same field. So they are not satisfied at all. I'm not comparing myself with those people. These are highly, illustrious personalities. So it is just like an example which I'm trying to
Yes.
suggest you.
Mm-hmm.
So when see, I am also into this field for over a period of time, and now I'm already a lawyer. So this is part of my business, to communicate with the people, to convince the people as much as I could do with more efficiencies, taking less time and giving the entire, summary of a particular issue. This is my business is, right? So when someone asks me whether I have gained this eloquency, I don't say I haven't got this eloquency, but I still say that I want to learn more in this. And when you go ahead in the process of your learning, as a process of learning advances further, right, you get to know that there are things which yet to be unfolded, right? So you make yourself busy in unfolding those, you know number of avenues which you want to trade upon. And that's how you make your entire journey, whatever you learn, very beautiful and very, very, can say, very energetic, right? Because without having a personal passion and fervor towards learning something, you cannot achieve a great, you know uh, great, you can say, a score, or make a great score in a particular kind of. So I always suggest people to be first passionate about what you do. So when you become passionate, and when you become, you know fervor about doing something, you actually be very much careless and very much negligence towards as to whether you have achieved this level or that level, because you are entirely using and entirely living the entire moment of your learning journey, right? So you love everything about everything you do, right? So that's how you go ahead in the process, and that's the way I go ahead in the process. And as long as a topic that comes to me as a part of subject for the presentation, and as long as I hold a good knowledge and a great deal of content on this, I feel myself very much confident as I can communicate for hours and hours. For example, my business today is to do, litigacies, and to make litigations, and to talk with the clients, and to talk on some various issues. So I find myself very confident and can communicate on those topics for hours and communicate with people, like to have a debate with people on burning issues. It's just something my cup of tea, which I can usually do it, right? So your eloquency, what I'm trying to say, is depends upon and is determined somewhat, and to a certain extent, on the basis of the topic that you are delivering, right? So it is all about your overall knowledge. It's all about overall the content that you hold. Because if you don't have something, for example, you ask me something about classical dance, and you just want to see how eloquent I am on this, that how it could be possible for me to speak even in Hindi. I can't
Yes.
speak even in Hindi, let alone speaking English. You understand this? So many things are determined on the basis of the knowledge and the content that you hold. And if you have a great section of vocabularies prepared in the rear side of your mind, and you are with your advanced construction, then you feel very confident. So what I can say, I feel very confident whenever I communicate with the people. Whether I have gained that eloquency or not, it's just something for people to decide. That's it. Over to you.
Yes, yes, I would also say the same thing because even though somebody says that they're too much into a particular thing, but they cannot be sure that they are going to be very eloquent, or you can say very versatile, or you can say very you can say very they are going to achieve expertise in that particular field. Because if until or unless you dedicate yourself to something, until or unless you fling yourself into that particular thing, you cannot actually achieve mastery, because mastery is
Right.
all about your dedication. Mastery is all about investing your time into learning that particular thing. Only then will you be able to achieve I would say mastery on that
Right.
particular thing, right? For example, if I say that I run different kinds of programs like you can speak English in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. But this is just, this is just a kind of, I would
It's
say,
controversial.
yeah, I've just divided it into accent modules and all. But this is not going to be possible, to be honest, because I cannot fool anybody. It is all about their dedication. You cannot finish anything. You cannot be expert in
I
anything.
find it. I said, don't you think? I mean, really, I find it sometimes very funny.
Yes.
People who come out and use this platform and giving some hoodwinks to all these newcomers to come and learn English within 19 days. I assume. I mean, how it going to be possible?
Some
I
even
mean,
say, they can make a
what
person
kind of
learn in
memory is
just
that
30
built?
days. In 30 days, and I'll always say that this is just you can say kind of trap. Because this is impossible. How can it be possible if you are starting from the very beginning? If you are starting from scratch, it's not going to be possible for you, right?
There
And
is
no
a
matter,
whole lot process.
yes,
Yeah.
no matter how learn means how highly intelligent you are, or
Absolutely.
how dedicated you are, but everything takes time. You cannot reach the
Absolutely.
perfection in a matter of days, in a matter of months, because it's a lifelong journey. Even though I've been teaching English for almost 10 years. Maybe I think more than 10 years. I don't really know the amount of time I've spent teaching this. But I cannot say that it's possible for me to, suppose you give me 100 words and then I'll learn them in a matter of minutes. It's impossible, because I cannot fool anybody, right? You have to spend some time. You have to uh, break a back doing it, right? And the last and but not the least is it's all about your interest. Until or
Yeah.
unless you arouse that interest in yourself, you cannot actually do that. Being a speaker is possible, but you should be open to learn all the time. You should be open to learn from other people. You should not be thinking that yes, I'm done now because I've spent so many years learning and I don't need anything else to learn. So I think this is, then you are putting a lid on your potential. You cannot actually progress from there onwards. So it's impossible. And the last question I want you to answer
One, one
me
one
is.
thing, one thing I want to add to this before you just put up your last question.
Mm-hmm.
I heard one video, and it was a seminar, and there was a good speaker over there, and the speaker presenting some datas and empiricals revealed a total study that he did, that any language, whatever the language is, he actually put the Chinese Mandarin language aside, because Chinese Mandarin language is
With,
somewhat more difficult.
yeah, toughest one, yes.
Yes, comparing to other languages.
Mm-hmm.
So he excluded this one language, Mandarin, and he was very much optimistic, presenting the data and empirical set that any language could be learned within at least 6 months. So this 6 months time period could be somewhere a result producing months.
Yes.
Only the thing which requires is that a proper setup of whatever the process that you have given to your learners as a system of learning. And if you go consistently on this, then there is a fair possibility that you might have a good command over communication skills, because communication skill is not just about uttering words, it also doing some mouth doing some mouth muscles practice, right?
Yes, yes.
English
For
language is
example,
all different from the
yes,
Hindi language.
you can see, yes, whenever we speak English now, a lot of airs comes out, right? And you can see, or you can also see one more, you can say. changes in your in your face. I would say
Absolutely, absolutely.
your jawline broadens. This
Yeah,
is just because
absolutely,
of the
absolutely.
air, you just you release while you speak. So
Right,
this
right,
is
right, right.
so this is all about English language. Yes. So one more question I want to ask you is, do you have any tips for people who really want to become a good speaker? Something which can help them.
Yes, I do have some tips, and these tips, I mean, are usually very effective because, see, many tips are very common, and just because of these tips are very common, people don't find it much effective because something which is very popular in a sense which is very much commonly used, many people find it, you know, not working adequately. Therefore, people don't stick to this and resort to these kinds of learning practice. But the fact remains is that there are some tips which are important and which continue to be important, especially when someone wants to be a good communicator. The first tip, according to me, apart from those common tips, I'm giving these tips which worked in my case, is that you have to be very much consistent with your speaking process, with your
Yes.
speaking, kind of learning. Consistency, when we use this word consistency, it means that you have to use this language on your regular basis.
Yes.
Now, the question might arise for many people being a non-native speakers, how we can find and arrange these speakers for ourselves and communicate with them. Yes, this is a very genuine question. We living in those eras where we have digital platforms available to us, and even some people are not inclined towards using this digital platform because ultimately the productivity loses when you go on consistently using this application, so our mind is distracted, right?
Yes.
In that way, what a person can do, just find one person with whom he could or she could be more comfortable with and start holding conversation with them. Even if it is not possible in some of the situations, it is not possible for many people living in some rural areas and on the outskirts of the city and villages, right? Now, in these conditions, your cell phone can be a real assisting source for you. For example, you have your camera, so you just on the camera of your video camera and start speaking. I mean, people don't take it seriously, but when you look at your face and communicating simultaneously, it's not something very easy for people. Trust me. I again say, whosoever listening to this video, do this practice right away and try to speak watching and seeing your face. You are not able to speak for more than 2 or 3 minutes. So
Yeah.
these are the basic techniques. These are the basics, you can say a practice that a person could be evolved with over the period of time and could get us, some degree of fluency on the communication skills. Third, second, and the most important part is that we have to do something with this vocab, because there is a misconceptions about learning vocab, and there are some tricks and tips being given to the people as to how they could learn vocabs. So most of the teachers these days I see on those online channels provide these kinds of vocabs, and they tell them to just memorize it and use it. Vocab can never be used when it is used separately. I mean, it should be used with a certain
It
phrase.
cannot be learned in isolation. You have to
Yes,
start using
yes.
it.
Yes, you have to use it with a certain phrase.
Yes.
For example, I give you one example. For example, there is a word, a vocab called assiduous,
Hmm.
which means to do hard work
Yes.
or to be very much painstakingly hardworking, right? Something like
Yeah.
this.
Yes. Yes.
Now, assiduous is a word which is used or replaces the word hard work. Now,
Hmm.
mostly students will be told to memorize this word and use this word when they find a pertinent situation, a German situation where they could, you know, fit this in the context and make it, sensible for people to listen. But instead of using in this way, I say and suggest people that use this very part in this way. For example, assiduous planning. So when you use the word planning, now you are going to learn this whole phrase together, assiduous planning.
Yes.
So assiduous planning, which will keep, you know, aware you about the word and its possible placement, so that you could actually use it according to you. So you could use some other phrases to make this, to make this word functioning, right?
Yes.
So that's how you have to use vocabulary. Vocabulary cannot be learned in isolation. It has to be,
Put into practice.
consistent with certain phrase, whatever
Yes.
it is. You have to
Yes.
find it out.
Yes.
Over to you.
So, yes. So these are the things which we actually were going to discuss with you, and I think that you'll get benefited through the conversation which we have just had. And we've got so many, so many nice discussions to come.
Hmm.
Right. So till means for the time being, I'm just taking a leave, and we'll
And
be coming.
and by the way, last time I forgot to tell you that tell your viewers to come and throw their
Yes.
comments to the video, so that and ask
Definitely,
their
we
questions
are
to us.
we are welcoming everybody to leave a comment so that we'll be able to refine our videos, and we'll be giving you as
Yes.
as much as possible. And but for this, don't forget to subscribe this channel, because
Right.
until or unless you subscribe this channel, you
Right.
won't get the new videos, right? So to
Right.
get all the notifications on time, you have to subscribe this video. So
Right.
do subscribe the video so that you can keep yourself updated with all the
And
notifications.
and don't forget to tell these viewers that it is completely
Yeah.
unedited. Don't
Yes.
make people feel.
Miss
This is the quality of this video.
our videos are unedited. There is no editing, nothing. We just record the live video, right? So we are going to see you people in the next video. Till then, take care.
Take care. Bye bye. Good night.
Bye.